Welcome to On the Way, a podcast about life. But not just any life, it's about life with Jesus. Why do people follow Jesus, and how do they get started? And what difference does following Jesus make in their lives? Before Christians had a name, they were known as people of the way, people who followed Jesus' teachings. People have been on the way for nearly 2,000 years now. During the podcast, we explore the ways that people become followers of Jesus and why, and what difference following Jesus makes in their lives. On the Way is produced by the Baptist Standard, a donor-supported provider of news, opinion, and resources for living like Jesus. I'm Eric Black, editor of the Baptist Standard. I'm glad you're with us today. We have with us today Emily Jones. She's familiar to many of you as a sportscaster for the Texas Rangers. Maybe you follow her on Twitter. There's about almost 95,000 people who do. So she may be pretty familiar to you, but in case she's not, Emily, we are so glad you were with us today.
Thank you. I'm happy to be here. This is a little bit out of my realm. I'm usually talking sports, baseball in particular, but pleased to be with you nonetheless, and always happy to answer questions, especially when it comes to my faith.
Well, we're really glad you're with us. And so you told us a little bit about this being outside of your realm. So tell us a little bit about your realm and how you got there.
So I grew up in a small town called Plainview, Texas, and was raised by my father. My sister and I both were. And so both of us kind of developed a very organic love of sports early on in our lives. We did all the traditional girl things, playing with Barbies, etc., but we did them oftentimes while watching sports. And a ton of our family time revolved around sports. And so both of us grew up being huge sports fans. Both are. Now to this day. My sister may be a bigger one than I am. And I always knew that I love sports. I always knew that I wanted to get into television from probably about 5th or 6th grade on. I knew that I wanted to do television. And I thought mixing the two together would be kind of the best of both worlds and would be a really cool career. And so I majored in broadcast journalism in college at Texas Tech, and after graduation worked at the NBC affiliate there in Lubbock for 6 years, 2 years as a news reporter. I hated it. It was depressing and boring.
Okay.
And then finally got the opportunity to make the transition to sports. So I was there for a total of 6 years, the last 4 of which I was the sports director there at KCBD in Lubbock. And then after that time, I took a job at Fox Sports Southwest in the DFW area, covering basically any and every sport you can imagine. I worked there for 9 years, and during that time developed, kind of very organically also a relationship with the Texas Rangers organization. I covered that team extensively during my time at Fox, and so after I had my second child, I thought it might be time to, kind of transition into a different career that allowed me to be with family more, had a little bit less rigorous of a schedule. And so when I did kind of make that move, the Rangers approached me about coming on to work exclusively for them, and that we could work out a schedule that kind of fit my work-life balance and fit my family's needs. And so that's what I've done for the last seven years now, is work just for them. During the season, I do some things in the off season for them, some, appearances and different things like that. But mainly it's a 6 month on, 6 month off type of job for me. And it allows me to really be hands-on as a mom, not be away, not miss too many things. And so it really is kind of the icing on the cake to my broadcasting career. And when my time with the Rangers is over, I'll say sayonara and be happy with what I've been able to do.
That's interesting. So you're saying that this is the icing on the cake. So there's not really something you're shooting for.
Very on top of the whipped cream, on top of the icing.
Okay.
I can't, people ask me sometimes, what do you want to do next? Do you want to do something else? And there's not anything else I can even imagine doing that. And I'm not saying I won't do anything after I'm done with this job. And I'm not saying I wouldn't listen to any other opportunities, but right now it's just such a blessing to my family, just the way the organization treats us, the way that that I feel about the organization, how much I love my job. And so for me, it's just kind of like I'm just enjoying this, like this time of this kind of sweet spot in my career, and we'll see how long it lasts, and we'll see when they kick me out of the clubhouse.
Okay. Well, there's a lot of things that I want to ask you from what you said, but before we get there, maybe we'll get back around to it. The focus of the podcast is how you became a follower of Jesus and what difference following Jesus makes in your life. So part of your trajectory, part of your story is at some point becoming a follower of Jesus. So tell us about that.
So my papa was a Baptist preacher, and my daddy was a traditional preacher's kid.
All
so
right.
he was forced into church any and every time that the doors were open. And so my dad raising my sister and I, he always left the door open for us, that if we wanted to go to church, he would take us. If we did not want to go to church, he was not going to force it on us. And so for us, it was a thing that was initiated by us. He provided that, foundation as far as our faith was concerned, but, going to church and, being active in a church, he let us dictate that. And so I became involved with a youth group at the Methodist Church, First United Methodist Church there in Plainview. And that's kind of where everything started to happen as far as my faith was concerned, going to church camp, different things like that. And then I was ultimately baptized in middle school. And then, I have not been now we're regular churchgoers, outside of the pandemic.
Right. Yeah.
But it was always, like I said, it was for my dad, it was always something that he wanted my sister and I to, he wanted it to be led by us. He would, like I said, provide that guidance and that foundation, but he wanted us to take the initiative as far as being actively involved in the church. Faith was always a big part of our lives, but the church going part was a little bit different than I think a lot of families, especially growing up in a small town like Plainview.
Yeah.
It's definitely guided me throughout my life. It continues to guide me throughout my life. And it's, I don't consider myself a highly religious person. I admit that I'm not a huge studier of the Bible, which I probably should be. But I try to live my life by, those faith-based principles that have been instilled in me, and that, that my faith in Jesus has given me.
Yeah. One of the things, especially with an organization with the name Baptist Standard, it sort of carries this idea that there's certain bars that you have to reach in order to be a follower of Jesus, or to be a good follower of Jesus, or whatever. And really, the truth is that following Jesus is it's a life. And like you said, with the pandemic right now, church attendance, church participation looks a little bit different right now. And so I think our measures for what a follower of Jesus is have to be different, not just during the pandemic, but we need to have just in general a different idea about what it means to be a follower of Jesus, and the standards that we think of, that how much we read the Bible, or how much we pray, or how much we go to church, these kinds of markers. I think that we've missed, well, to use that marker, I think we've missed the mark about what it really means to be a follower of Jesus. But anyway, that's just my 2 cents worth.
No, I completely agree. And I think, our pastor is a dear friend of ours. And the reason we go to the church we go to is because of him, and because of the way that he leads our congregation and our group. It's not the traditional service. It's a group called The Gathering. And the way that he takes messages from the Bible and translates them into 2020 languages and lessons are the reason I go to church. I don't feel like I have to go to church to get those, to validate my faith or anything like that. But I go because I enjoy the way that he teaches, basically. And so, yeah, we're a member of the First United Methodist Church in Fort Worth. There are things that I don't agree with within the big Methodist church, but the way that I see my church handling situations and what we're doing in our community makes me feel good and makes me proud to be a part of it.
Gotcha. Yeah. We're going to take a sponsor break, and we'll be right back.
Since 1952, South Texas Children's Home Ministries has focused on healing hearts and sharing hope. Their 9 ministries focus on helping hurting children and families, all regardless of an individual's ability to pay. To find out more, visit www.stchm.org.
So along the way between Plainview and where you are now, the icing on the cake, what points in there did your faith factor into or play a role in the decisions that you made and where you went?
Yeah, I mean, I think just letting those, in baseball, we talk about letting the game come to you. And I think that's part of leading a faith-based life, is kind of letting the game come to you at times and not forcing the issue too much. And the way my personality is to go and achieve, and climb. And sometimes, especially in this career, you don't start out at the top. You don't start out making a ton of money. You don't start out with the cush gigs. I mean, you start out at the bottom, and you have to. I always say this business has a way of weeding itself out, because you make no money and you have terrible hours, and you're in small towns to start and all that kind of stuff. And so I think just trusting in the process and trusting in my faith that that the things that are supposed to happen will happen, even if I don't think they're the things that are supposed to be happening.
So in those early days when you weren't getting the cush gigs, you weren't getting paid a lot, what kinds of questions were you asking about this trajectory that you were on?
I mean, I think you just question, like, did I choose the right path? Am I making the right decisions? Did I miss an opportunity? I think all those normal questions, especially that young professionals go through about, is this the right thing to where I ultimately want to be? And, this job with the Rangers is not what that if you would have asked me 20 years ago what my dream job was, it would be to be a sports center anchor. And now I can't think of anything worse than sitting behind a desk and reading from a teleprompter. And so, being open to those, being open to those changes in the path that you think you're supposed to travel, and knowing that it's all happening for a reason. I mean, I had a plan to be married by 26 and my first kid by 28 and my second by 30 and then done. And then I hadn't even met my husband when I was at that age. And so, you just kind of have to let life happen and know that cards are falling where they're supposed to.
Yeah. And you have, speaking of family and kids, and you have 2 young kids.
I do.
Yeah.
9-year-old boy, Henry, and a 7-year-old girl, Hattie.
Yeah. I'm letting that sink in a little bit. I have 2 youngish kids too, and we waited a little bit longer to have kids. And so sometimes I wonder if we would have been better for it if we had children when we were younger. We tend to be tired a lot more now. Yeah.
They're exhausting. That's for
Yeah.
sure.
But as you said, you're go, and you're always getting things done. So that's got to come together with having children, 2 young children, where you are right now. That's a lot of people look at that and they say, this is a lot to do in a day. How are you doing that?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's just, I just get through one day at a time. I mean, honestly, you just try to keep your kids alive and stay married. And if we make it to the end of the day and they're in bed and I've still got a husband in the house, I feel like I've achieved in some way.
Okay.
So yeah, I'm just really trying. I'm trying as over analytical as I can be. I'm really at this point in my life just trying to simplify things. Try to do good work in my community. Try to teach my kids to be good humans. Just try to simplify everything. Especially now that I feel like the professional is kind of, it's I've achieved everything I want to achieve. I've like I said, if they were to tell me to hit the road tomorrow, I would, I'd be sad, but there's nothing out there that I wish I would have done different, or that I wish that I could have accomplished, or that I wish that I could have done. Maybe the Rangers winning a World Series, not just going to 2, would be great, but that's really about it. And that's totally out of my control. So, I just now at this point, I'm just trying to, focus on teaching my children how to be good humans, how to be kind and empathetic and aware of their community and not just our little bubble.
Yeah.
And so I'm just really trying to be mindful of those things and teach those lessons, and that's it.
I have a lot of questions about that too. Teaching your kids how to be good humans and to be good for their community, not just their bubble. Those are important things. I wonder what you bring from your relationship with the Rangers clubhouse, the players, because that's one of the things that you're known for is the relationship that you have with the players, and the way that you sort of stick up for them, advocate for them, I guess I'd say. What do you bring from that to your relationship with your kids? Or maybe it goes the other way. I don't know.
It's kind of, they're kind of interchangeable, honestly. And when I first started out, there was a lot of guys in the clubhouse that were my age or close to my age. And we would swap stories about marriage and, babies and all that kind of stuff. And then one day I looked up and I was like, oh, wow. So now I'm old enough to be these guys' moms.
Yeah.
And so, so my role in that clubhouse has changed over the years. And, I think I bucked it for a little bit because I didn't want to admit that I was getting old, but now I embrace it. And I've developed relationships at a level that I never imagined that I would with baseball players that are, half my age. And it's been fun for me. And I feel like what I try to provide to them is just a safe place. I feel like in a room full of dudes, it's kind of hard. Sometimes you've got that wall up and you've got that front up and you've got that tough exterior to where they don't let it down a lot. And so for me to be a voice and an ear and, kind of just a sounding board for them, knowing that that they can talk to me about anything and I'm not going to judge them. I'm not going to, clown them. I'm not, that we can, there's plenty of that, don't get me wrong, but when they needed someone to talk to, when they need someone to, to vent to or, confide in, that they can trust me and that they can come to me and that I'll give them honest advice. And I think that's another thing too, especially, in the world of professional sports, there's a lot of people who just tell these guys what they want to hear. And I've never been one to do that. And they all know it. And the same goes for me. They don't pull any punches with me. And so we have that very open and honest relationship that enables us to, feel that level of security and comfort with each other. And it goes both ways.
Yeah, that's listening to you. I think about the common perception of a professional athlete is this is not somebody who needs a safe space. This is not somebody who needs that kind of relationship, or that kind of person in their life. And maybe that's just our celebrity culture and our really our naivety or our ignorance about what that's all right about the human side, the humanity of the people that we watch on TV or that we pay a lot of money to go see play a sport or their movie or whatever. That's we just don't think about that side of.
Well, everyone needs a safe space. Every human on the planet needs a safe place. They need a person that they can go to, if not multiple people they can go to. I don't care who you are. I don't care what you do. Everyone needs a safe space. Everyone needs a place to where they can totally just kind of undress and be completely and totally open and honest. And I think that that's, a problem in our society that so many people don't feel comfortable reaching out or don't feel comfortable exposing their emotions because they feel like they'll be judged for them. And I think that's unfortunate. And that's definitely something that I try to provide, not just the, the baseball players that I cover, but also to the people, the people in my life, period.
And just because a place is safe, as you mentioned, doesn't mean that you're not pulling punches.
Oh,
Yeah.
no.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just not with me at least. I mean, it's not really in my
Yeah,
DNA.
it's not in your wheelhouse.
Yeah.
We're going to take a 60-second sponsor break, and we'll be right back. High Ground Advisors has a 90-year history of providing investment management and planned giving solutions to churches, faith-based organizations, and charitably minded individuals dedicated to transforming lives. High Ground is trusted by over 450 nonprofit clients, and we're one of them. High Ground has partnered with Baptist Standard for over 70 years by offering a comprehensive charitable giving and investment solutions model, which includes asset management, planned giving education and development, account support services, real estate and minerals management, and expert legal consultation. High Ground and the Baptist Standard share similar values, such as serving those who are called and dedicated to transforming lives and being a trusted caretaker of legacies. They also value good stewardship, helping those who desire to be good stewards of their financial resources to find creative giving solutions to fulfill that calling. They know what they do to protect, strengthen, and grow our mission is ultimately in service to the gospel. To learn more about how High Ground Advisors can partner with you or your organization, visit their website at highgroundadvisors.org. Let's go back to just the professional side of things. There's a couple of questions that I wanted to ask you related to that. One is, so you've talked about, actually there's a few questions I want to ask you about that. One is, you talked about when you get into the business, the broadcasting, you start out at the bottom and you don't get the cush gigs, you don't get the good hours, good pay, those kinds of things. What did you learn at that point in your career that makes you who you are now?
I think you learn a lot. I mean, I learned that you learn what you're willing to do to get where you want. And for some people that threshold is different. And for me, I learned that this is what I wanted to do. And I was willing to do whatever it took to get there. And, so you learn that you're tougher than you think. You learn that you're smarter than you might think. You're more resourceful than you might think. And so I feel like, having those early trials and tribulations. And, when I switched to sports director in Lubbock, I mean, I was at the time only the second woman in the country at a major network affiliate to be a sports director. And I was 23 years old. I mean, I was completely over my skis. I was completely probably unqualified to do what I was doing. But you figure it out and you make it work if by all means necessary.
Yeah, and that's not something you would have said at the time. You wouldn't have said, "I'm over my skis" at the time. You kept your mouth shut about that.
No, you pretend.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah.
No, you don't ever admit it.
Yeah.
No, you get through it. I mean, you tread water and you fake it till you make it. And you figure it out. But yeah, I mean, I was totally in over my skis, but I was thankful for the, probably completely crazy opportunity that someone gave me. And I thought, I can't let this go, even though I shouldn't be here. I shouldn't be doing this at this point in my life. But by God, I'm going to figure it out how to make it work. And so there were some growing pains early on. And I mean, heck, I'm still learning. I've been doing this for 22 years now. And so, you kind of fake it till you make it and figure it out as you go. And
you said that early on you figure out what you're willing to do and what you're not willing to do. Of course, with the focus of the podcast being, one of the focuses being what difference Jesus makes, following Jesus makes in your life choices. I'm curious, as a person of faith, were there faith boundaries in there where you came up against something you said, no, my faith is not going to let me go there, or just my personal standards, I'm not going to go there, and so that was for you a personal sort of weeding out?
Yeah, I mean, nothing ever that would have been career changing or anything like that. I mean, I feel like, when you have this foundation, kind of just the way that I was raised and, the faith that I have and just kind of the way that I live my life, you kind of just have these, I mean, you do have moments to where, you could take one of two paths in the road, and that one might be tempting because it might be a little bit easier to get to where you're trying to go, and but does it conflict with anything morally or anything like that you believe in? And so I haven't had a ton of those to where it's been like a stark contrasting decision or a situation that I've been in that I felt like that I was really, I guess, torn in one direction or the other.
Yeah, I know that some people wonder about what it's like to be a woman in a male-dominated industry or career field. And, recently there's been a lot of revelations about what women endure in this line of work. And even recently, you had an exchange with another local broadcaster with respect to women's compensation. Yeah. So you're constantly, it seems like, that's an area, and we won't dive too much into that, but it seems to me that that's one of those specific sort of boundaries that you've had to navigate in your career.
Yeah, and I think, I've never tried to, I hate calling it playing the woman card, but I've never really tried to rely or lean on that as a crutch, or it's so hard to be a woman in a male-dominated field. Are there challenges? Absolutely. But I also, too, try to use it to my advantage. And it sounds weird, but what I mean by that is I try to go into my conversations, my relationships, my interactions in a very disarming manner. A lot of men who have played sports, who grew up playing sports, who have, whatever, they have their mindset is totally different. Not all of them, but a lot of them. And so the way that they ask questions, the way that they approach situations and things comes across as not disarming. Yeah. And so for me, that's my approach. And it's a genuine approach. Like if I ask a guy like, hey, why'd you throw a change up there instead of a curve? Like it's not because I'm saying you should have, thrown a curve. I'm honestly asking, like, dude, I don't know. Like, tell me why you did that so I can know where your thought process was coming from. But yeah, there's obviously challenges. And I think that, I feel like it's my, not responsibility, but it's something that I want to do as a woman in this field, to stick up for other women. Because when you're early in your career and you don't have that confidence and you don't have that experience and that, time that you've put in, you're so much less hesitant to say something. Once you get to 43 and 22 years in this business, I don't care. I mean, I will throw out what I believe all day long. And if you want to come at me for it, get after it. Because the things that I say, the things that I do are all coming from a very honest place. And you may not agree with it and you may not believe in it, and that's completely fine. But I am so now comfortable in my own skin that I'm not afraid to say anything that I think or anything that I believe. And it's a really, really cool place to be. It's taken me a long time to get there. But you're not going to be there at 20. You're not going to be there at 25. You may not even be there at 30. And I've just gotten there in the last few years to where I'm like, look, this is me. This is who I am. I'm not trying to hide anything. I'll put my stuff out there. And if you don't like it, that's cool. That's fine. And I just really don't care.
Yeah. Yeah, I've seen that on Twitter and a couple of other places. Yeah, yeah. So, and I want to respond to that by saying that when you were describing the early days of your career, you said that you felt overwhelmed, not because you were a young woman. You felt overwhelmed because you were 23 years old. With a lot of responsibility. And so that doesn't have anything to do with being a man or a woman. That's what I heard you say anyway. Not necessarily making a commentary on that, but just what I heard you say.
No, and that's very true, and that's not exclusive to women, as you said. But when you're a woman in the sports world, there is an added layer to that, to where you feel like you have to, prove yourself to a level that others don't, because you don't have the same anatomy. And basically that's it. I mean, because last time I checked, men aren't born with, I don't think sports knowledge comes in your male genitalia, and so there's no reason why it should be that way. So you've got guys who've never played sports or done anything, but they're automatically assumed to have sports knowledge because literally of their anatomy. And it makes me crazy. And so for a long time, I fell into that, to where I felt like I had to overcompensate for that. And let me throw out some stats and show you what I know and all that. And now I'm like, and would never admit that I didn't know anything about something. And now I'm like, I don't know jack about hockey. Like, I am the worst hockey. Like, I love watching it. I don't know what the stuff, I don't know what, but I used to fake it and be like, oh yeah, I know. I don't know anything about it. Because I don't need to now. I cover baseball. I love watching hockey. I love the Stars, but I'm like, I'm not trying to pretend like I know everything about all the sports, because it's ridiculous. And I'm
it's not possible either. No, for anybody.
No.
Describe for me a time when you were reporting and you knew it was successful, and what made it successful.
I guess maybe Adrian Beltre's 3,000 hit.
Yeah. Okay.
The interview afterward, and knowing Adrian's personality and getting to know him over the course of 7 years, and knowing how intimidated I was by him in the beginning when he first got to town, and how kind of slowly that relationship evolved, and what a great friendship it evolved into. And knowing that was like the accumulation of so many, conversations and experiences and all that, to know that, to be on that field with him in that moment, and to have this really great, awesome conversation. And I felt like it was great, because we had that past, we had that history, we had all those things, to where in that huge moment, it was just the two of us talking about it. And so I guess that's definitely one of the highlights of my career.
And you were kind of absorbed in that moment.
For sure. Yeah. I was on cloud nine.
Let's go the opposite direction. When was there a failure, and what made it a failure?
Probably covering hockey.
Okay.
Because when I was at Fox Sports Southwest, we just never watched hockey growing up. That was never a thing. And so when we were at Fox Sports Southwest, when I was there, I covered all different sports. I covered football, I covered basketball, but I knew tons about football and basketball and baseball. But then, I would hardly work any hockey games. But then when I did, I would be like, oh my gosh. And I remember and I can see where, kind of the people you're working with, they're like hockey gurus. And at that point in time, I probably should have put more work into it, and I should have learned more. But I was like, I'm only doing like 4 games a year. Yeah. So I remember telling Craig Ludwig, who was my analyst, and I was just like, look, dude, I'm just going to tee you up. Like, I'm going to make you look really smart. I'm going to throw you softballs. It's going to, and he was great about it. Luddy was awesome. And so, but it kind of did make me feel bad, because I was like, I should probably put in some, some time and effort into learning.
Watch a YouTube video or something.
And if I would have stuck around, or if I would have done more games, I would have. And that's me making an excuse. But yeah, so that was definitely a big hockey fail.
All right.
Well, I'm going to give you one last question.
Okay.
If somebody could only know one thing about you, And let me back up from that question a little bit because, you've done a lot of things. You've published a couple of books, and I was going to ask you about one of those books, but we're about out of time. So you've covered a lot of sports. And this is just a couple of things that you've been involved in. So if somebody's meeting you for the first time, and it's the only time they're going to meet you, if they could only know one thing about you, what would you want it to be?
I would think it's just that my intentions are good. I may not always execute, but my intentions are always good. And I'm trying to be a good person. And I don't always pull it off, but I'm always trying. And I always have good intentions. Like I said, I may not execute them and I may not pull it off. But that is always there. I'm always intending to do good. And even though I sometimes fall short, I keep coming back to that.
All right. Emily, thank you so much for being with us today.
Sure. It was a lot of fun. I appreciate it.
Just because a person follows Jesus doesn't mean that person is perfect. Following Jesus is a lifetime of growing more like Him. Likewise, while there are followers who are more mature than others, who have spent more time growing close to Jesus than other followers, there are no followers of Jesus who are better than others. If you aren't on the way with Jesus, we invite you to check out the Follow Jesus page on the Baptist Standard website at baptiststandard.com/Follow Jesus to learn more about becoming a follower of Him. If you are on the way with Jesus, we hope that this podcast has encouraged you to grow more like Him. I'm Eric Black, editor of the Baptist Standard, and I'm glad you've been with us today.